Most founders never end up launching their apps. In fact, most founders never actually even get past the initial stages of development with their apps. And while there are countless reasons why people might say they had to put their apps on the back burner or kill their launch plans, most of their reasoning actually stems from two specific things. Today, you're going to learn exactly what holds most of these founders back, even if they don't consciously realize it, plus how to turn those two obstacles into launching pads for success instead. Adopting these strategies can be hard because they go against our natural human instincts, but in order to successfully build and launch an app, you have to evolve and adapt, just as massive companies like Apple and Microsoft do. I'm Kristen Young's co-founder of Coaching No-Code Apps, where we help founders build custom apps to start or scale their businesses. Let's dive right in. So, what are the two major things holding so many founders back from potential success? You might think it's funding, partnerships, tech skills, or other similar specs, but in fact, it's much simpler. While those types of problems might be present on the surface for some founders, at their roots are perfectionism and procrastination. It sounds simple, but there's so much more to it than you might think. Now, some people swear their path to success was the result of absolute perfectionism, of crossing every T and dotting every I along the way. And while that might be true for a very small percentage of founders, the reality is most people building an app they plan to turn into a new business or revenue stream end up playing the what if game when they do this. And it's something very few of them have time for. Here's how the what if game works. You have an idea for an app you want to build, so you start planning out how that app will work. Along the way, you run into a number of different scenarios requiring you to make a decision on something. Maybe you have to choose how the front-end design of your app will look for users, the way a specific niche feature will work when there are multiple options, or how many different pricing tiers you'll start with. The list could go on. And as you start to make those decisions, you also start analyzing the outcome of each decision you make. If the front-end design looks one way, maybe it'll attract a certain crowd, but repel another. And if it looks another way, it could do the opposite. If you build your niche feature in this way, maybe it'll give you one long-term benefit, but if you build it in another, it could give you a different long-term benefit. And if you start with 3 pricing tiers, maybe you'll have more sales. But if you start with 1 pricing option, you could make more profit. This could keep going and going. I mean, with that first design option that attracts crowd number 1, for example, maybe you'd have to make some compromises to another part of your app. And if that happens, will those compromises be worth it? And that niche feature with the long-term benefit could also end up meaning you have to put in more work to get the other benefit you're sacrificing. And with your pricing tiers, what happens when you lose out on all the prospective users who wanted the option you decided against? Will you have to come up with another strategy to attract them? I mean, you can see where I'm going with this. Essentially, the what if game is where you plan for every single imaginable outcome related to every single aspect and decision of your app. And while it can be smart to plan ahead in certain situations, the what if game is a never-ending one, because with every single scenario you come up with, another 2 will reveal themselves. Perfectionism is another name for this game, and it's why so many founders never make progress. In reality, the problem with perfectionism and playing the what if game isn't a founder's need for their product to be perfect. It's their fear of failure. See, when you fear failure, it drives you to be perfect. And when you try to be perfect, it turns whatever goal you're striving towards into an impossible one to achieve because there's no way to anticipate every potential outcome. It's a game you can't win. And that leads us to the second thing keeping so many founders from building and launching their apps. Founders who succumb to perfectionism and the what if game also tend to harbor the ducks in a row mentality. This is where they get stuck in a long process of preparing and planning their apps because they have to get all their ducks in a row before they feel comfortable actually beginning their development. They have to choose a domain name and set it up properly before they can even begin to think about touching development. They need to come up with a name they can trademark and a fancy logo before they can make any progress on the technical side. They must form a solid business plan and legal structure before they've even created something as simple as a sign-up page for their future potential users. They have to get all their ducks in a row before they can do the thing they've actually set out to do in the first place: build their apps. But just like the what-if game leads to an unending discovery of new scenarios to plan and prepare for, the ducks in a row mentality is the same, because there will always be things you can do before ever starting to build your app. Trying to tackle all of them at first, it's just procrastination hiding behind a facade of busy work. But there's a way to replace perfectionism and procrastination with something else. Whereas unsuccessful founders often fall victim to perfectionism and procrastination, successful founders embrace two different traits: the ability to tolerate calculated risk and make quick decisions. No matter what type of business you're building or growing, every entrepreneur must be able to take calculated risks. Now, this goes directly against perfectionism because the main risk at stake is failure. And the risk of failure is what plants fear in the hearts of perfectionists. The difference between successful and unsuccessful founders, however, is that successful founders understand failure doesn't have to be bad. Failure instead can open the doors to growth. See, if you were to launch your MVP app, your minimum viable product, with a basic logo, a simple design, and not just one pricing tier, but no pricing tier, you might be critiqued. But what perfectionists don't understand is that when you're building an app, critique is actually the goal. Feedback is the most important thing you should be striving for, because without it, you'll never be able to improve. You can guess and plan for every scenario imaginable, but how many scenarios do you think you'll miss without actual users telling you what they do and don't want? Why waste time trying to think and talk for them when you can just let them do the thinking and talking themselves? Instead, successful founders take calculated risks. In the world of apps and software, this happens when someone identifies a problem, comes up with a way to solve it in the form of an app, and uses experience and data to create their solution. And instead of playing the what-if game, they introduce their solution to initial test or beta users and let them point out what needs to be changed or improved. Perfectionists view that feedback as failure. Successful founders see it as gold. Think about companies like Apple or Microsoft. Bill Gates constantly strived to launch products early and quickly, even when they had bugs and areas they can be improved on. He knew that there was no point in spending resources improving those areas unless users actually cared about them. And we all know how well that worked out for him. Very well. To build on that, those founders also have to be able to make quick decisions. This goes directly against procrastination and the ducks in a row mentality, because successful founders understand that until they have a product they can get feedback on, the other stuff doesn't tend to matter. And because of that, they need to get a core product in users' hands quickly. To do that, they have to make a series of quick and deliberate decisions. Sure, they could spend a week going back and forth with a designer on logos, but will that logo change the way users actually use their app? Of course not. In that case, the ability to simply choose a logo and move on with development, or even move on before having a logo at all, is worth a week or more of time, for example. At its root, the ability to make quick decisions goes hand in hand with the ability to prioritize. Let me ask you, what's most important right now? Choosing a fancy color palette and layout for your pages, or actually getting those pages functioning so you can start getting feedback on said functionality? Just like critique and feedback is invaluable as a founder, so too is a willingness and ability to make decisions, even if that means making a decision not to have all your ducks in a row before touching the development side of things. In reality, making quick decisions and understanding that failure can open the door to opportunity goes directly against our human instincts. See, we internally strive to prepare, to worry, and to let fear steer us away from potential failure. But we have those instincts because, like any other living thing on our planet, we need to survive. When it comes to building an app to help start or grow your business, however, we have to push against those natural instincts because while they might help us survive in dangerous situations, they won't help build and grow a thriving app. Of course, as much as we'd all love to be able to simply flip a switch and change our actions or thoughts, it doesn't quite work that way. Instead, just like fear and worry are driven by the goal of survival, risk tolerance and decision-making needs to be spurred by a goal as well. And that goal in the beginning stages of app development is feedback. Here's an example of how this can be put to practice. In our MVP program, founders are given 12 weeks to build their core apps, and their priority at the end is to be able to onboard their first group of test users or start using the apps themselves as a test user. Now, the reason they have this main priority is because onboarding test users will help them get feedback, and feedback is their actual goal. Now, because they have a simple goal of getting feedback, they're able to feel more comfortable not being perfectionists. Critique and feedback is the goal, and receiving it is a good thing, not failure. They're also able to make decisions quickly because if any option or scenario they're deciding on doesn't support their main goal of getting feedback, it gets shelved and they move on. By simply aiming their sights on getting feedback for their MVPs, they're able to bypass perfectionism and actually strive toward what perfectionists fear the most, critique, and make decisions quickly because they have a built-in decision filter. If it doesn't support their goal, it's out. Think of it like hockey legend Wayne Gretzky said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Sure, it might sound a little like a motivational poster, but it's true. In hockey, for example, the goal is to score and get points for your team. Now, during a game, it's highly unlikely players will ever have the perfect opening to take a shot. And without a perfect opening, it means that by taking the shot, they could miss. And missing would mean upsetting fans, teammates, and coaches. Sounds like failure, right? But think about the alternative. The alternative to missing a shot is not taking one at all. It means spending your life practicing to take shots and preparing to be really great at taking shots, but letting your fear in the moment stop you from actually doing so. Now, think about your app in the same way. You can plan and practice to take the shot, and then actually take the shot at the first opportunity you get. Now, you might miss, but if so, you'd analyze the reason why you missed, improve your technique, and shoot again. Alternatively, you can plan and practice to take the shot, but never take it until you have the perfect opportunity. The thing is, perfect opportunities rarely show up on their own. You have to make them. So plan and prepare to build your app, but don't let that process become unending. Accept that failure can mean opportunity, and remember that getting all your ducks in a row in order to finally start development is just another facade for procrastination. All right, I hope that helped you learn a helpful new strategy for your app. With the concepts we went over today, you should be able to replace perfectionism and procrastination with the ability to accept calculated risk and make strategic decisions instead. If you learned something new today, go ahead and click the subscribe button right below this video so you can stay updated on every new video released. And if you want to take this way further, head to coachingnocodeapps.com and sign up for our extended training series. It's completely free. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.